Mai 2nd, 1519. 3 a.m. The Château du Clos, Lucé, Amboise, France. In a modest bedchamber overlooking the Loire Valley, the most celebrated mind of the Renaissance draws his final breath. Leonardo da Vinci, painter of the Mona Lisa, designer of flying machines, master of anatomy, architect of dreams, dies at age 67, leaving behind no children, no wife, no direct heirs. Yet in his final moments, as French courtiers and Italian servants gather around his deathbed, few could imagine that 5 centuries later, modern science would trace his genetic legacy through an unbroken chain reaching back to medieval Tuscany and forward to farmers, artisans, and office workers living quietly in the Italian countryside of 2025. This is the extraordinary story of a family that began with a simple man named Michel in 1331, flourished through generations of Tuscan notaries and landowners, produced history's most extraordinary polymath through an illegitimate union between different worlds, and continues today through descendants who carry the same Y chromosome that once belonged to the master himself. It is a tale written in DNA and documents, preserved in Florentine archives and revealed through cutting-edge genealogical science, the complete lineage of Leonardo da Vinci. The rolling hills of Tuscany in 1331 bore witness to the birth of a destiny neither chronicled nor anticipated. In the small hilltop town of Vinci, nestled between Florence and Pisa among olive groves and vineyards, a man named Michel da Vinci established what would become one of history's most remarkable family lines. Michel, whose very existence emerges from the mists of medieval record-keeping, represents the earliest documented ancestor of Leonardo da Vinci, the founder of the lineage that modern researchers have traced through an unbroken male line spanning 690 years and 21 generations. Town of Vinci itself tells the story of the family's origins. Situated on the slopes of Montalbano, this strategic location commanded views across the fertile Arno Valley, where merchant routes connected the great cities of Florence and Pisa. The very name da Vinci, meaning from Vinci, reflects the medieval practice of identifying families by their place of origin. Unlike the great patrician houses of Rome or the banking dynasties of Florence, the da Vinci family drew their identity not from imperial ancestry or commercial wealth, but from the soil and stones of this particular patch of Tuscan earth. Michel da Vinci lived through the transformative 14th century, an era when the Italian peninsula was reshaping itself from the feudal structures of the Middle Ages into the city-states that would birth the Renaissance. His world was one of emerging possibilities, where families could rise through skill and service, where the old certainties of blood and noble birth were yielding to new forms of social mobility. The Black Death of 1347 to 1351 had decimated Europe's population, creating opportunities for survivors to acquire land, establish professions, and elevate their social standing. In this environment of upheaval and renewal, Michel da Vinci laid the foundations for a family that would produce, 4 generations later, one of humanity's most exceptional minds. The genealogical trail from Michel to Leonardo reveals a family gradually ascending the social hierarchy of medieval and Renaissance Tuscany. Michel's son and grandsons followed the path of many ambitious rural families, moving from agricultural labor toward professional trades and landed status. By the time Leonardo's great-great-grandfather emerged in the records, the family had established itself among the respectable citizenry of Vinci and the surrounding countryside, property owners and local officials who participated in the governance of their community while maintaining their rural roots. The transformation of the da Vinci family from medieval farmers to Renaissance professionals reached its culmination with Leonardo's grandfather, Antonio da Vinci, born in 1393. Antonio represents a pivotal figure in the family's evolution, the first to accumulate significant wealth and social standing, the first to establish formal connections with Florence, and the first to position his family for entry into the professional classes that dominated Italian urban life. Living through the early decades of the 15th century, Antonio witnessed the explosive growth of Florence as a cultural and economic powerhouse. The Medici banking empire was transforming the city into Europe's financial capital, while humanist scholars were rediscovering classical learning and Renaissance artists were revolutionizing visual culture. Against this backdrop of unprecedented intellectual and artistic ferment, Antonio da Vinci made the crucial decision to invest in his family's future through education and professional training, preparing his son Piero for the prestigious and lucrative career of a notary. The social significance of this transition cannot be overstated. In Renaissance Italy, notaries occupied a unique position in the social hierarchy, more prestigious than merchants or artisans, more accessible than the hereditary nobility. A notary was a certified witness and scribe, a keeper of legal documents, a facilitator of contracts and transactions. The profession required literacy, legal knowledge, and social connections, qualifications that marked its practitioners as members of the educated elite. When Antonio da Vinci secured his son Piero's entry into this profession, he was ensuring the family's permanent elevation from the ranks of rural laborers to the urban patriciate. Piero Frosino di Antonio da Vinci, Leonardo's father, embodied the ambitions and achievements of his lineage. Born into the first generation of his family to enjoy genuine prosperity and social status, Piero established himself as one of Florence's most successful notaries, handling legal affairs for wealthy merchants, religious institutions, and noble families. His career spanned the golden age of Florentine Renaissance culture, when the city attracted artists, scholars, and entrepreneurs from across Europe. Piero's professional success brought him into contact with the intellectual and artistic currents of his time, creating the cultural environment that would nurture his most famous son. Yet Piero's personal life reflected the complexities and contradictions of Renaissance society. A man of respectability and professional standing, he nevertheless fathered numerous children both within and outside marriage, a practice common among Italian men of his social class, but one that would profoundly shape the destiny of his most gifted offspring. Through 4 marriages, Piero had 12 legitimate children, establishing a large and prosperous family that continued the Da Vinci name through subsequent generations. But it was his relationship with a young woman named Caterina, sometime around 1451, that would produce the most consequential birth in the family's history. The mystery surrounding Leonardo's mother, Caterina, has captivated historians for centuries, and recent scholarship has dramatically revised our understanding of her identity and origins. For generations, scholars assumed Caterina was a local Tuscan peasant, a common assumption that reflected both the class prejudices of earlier historians and the limited documentation available for women of lower social status. However, groundbreaking research published in 2023 suggests a far more complex and fascinating reality. Contemporary documents and tax records indicate that Caterina may have been a slave from the Caucasus region, a young woman trafficked to Italy as part of the extensive slave trade that supplied domestic labor to wealthy Italian households during the 15th century. This revelation, based on careful analysis of naming patterns, legal documents, and migration records, suggests that Leonardo da Vinci was the son of an enslaved woman who had been forcibly converted to Christianity and given the common slave name Caterina. If accurate, this interpretation adds profound, new dimensions to our understanding of Leonardo's origins, the greatest genius of the Renaissance, born from the union of a prosperous Florentine notary and a traumatized refugee from the far reaches of Europe. Alternative research, published in 2017, argues for a different but equally compelling interpretation of Caterina's identity. According to this view, based on extensive archival research and Tuscan records, Caterina was indeed a local woman, but not a peasant. Instead, she was an orphaned teenager named Caterina di Meo Lippi, who had lost her parents and was living in reduced circumstances with her grandmother and younger brother. This interpretation paints a picture of a vulnerable young woman from a once respectable family, struggling to survive in a society that offered few protections for the destitute. Both interpretations, while differing in their specific details, agree on the essential reality of Leonardo's birth. He was the illegitimate child of a powerful, wealthy man and a powerless, impoverished woman. This fundamental asymmetry between Ser Piero's social prominence and Caterina's marginalization would define the circumstances of Leonardo's early life and profoundly influence his relationship to Renaissance society. The Florence into which Leonardo was born in 1452 represented the pinnacle of Renaissance achievement and the epicenter of European cultural transformation. Under the patronage of the Medici family, the city had become a beacon of artistic innovation, philosophical inquiry, and technological advancement. Wealthy bankers and merchants competed to commission works from the greatest artists of the age, while humanist scholars rediscovered and reinterpreted the wisdom of classical antiquity. In the workshops of masters like Andrea del Verrocchio, young artists learned not only the techniques of painting and sculpture, but also the mathematical principles of perspective, the anatomical structures of the human body, and the engineering principles behind architectural monuments. Yet this cultural flowering existed alongside rigid social hierarchies that determined an individual's opportunities based on the circumstances of their birth. Legitimate children of respectable families could expect education, professional training, and inheritance rights. Illegitimate children, regardless of their talents or ambitions, faced systematic exclusion from many of the benefits of Renaissance society. They could not inherit their father's property, could not enter certain prestigious professions, or enjoy the full rights of citizenship. In legal terminology, they were bastards, a designation that marked them as social outsiders, despite any personal achievements or noble qualities they might possess. Leonardo's illegitimate status, thus, placed him in a peculiar position within Renaissance society. As the son of a successful notary, he enjoyed certain privileges. He was raised in his father's household, received some education, and had access to opportunities denied to children of the truly poor. Yet his illegitimacy excluded him from following in his father's footsteps as a notary, a profession that required legitimate birth and family connections. This exclusion proved fortuitous for the history of art and science, as it forced Leonardo to pursue alternative careers that ultimately led him to Andrea del Verrocchio's workshop and the artistic education that would unlock his extraordinary talents. Boy who would become history's most celebrated polymath grew up in the villa of his grandfather, Antonio, surrounded by the natural beauty of the Tuscan countryside that would inspire his lifelong fascination with the workings of nature. Here, among the olive groves and vineyards of Vinci, Leonardo developed the observational skills and scientific curiosity that would characterize his approach to every subject he encountered. The rural environment provided him with direct access to the phenomena that would later fill his notebooks: flowing water, growing plants, flying birds, and geological formations. Unlike children raised entirely within urban environments, Leonardo experienced nature as a living laboratory where he could observe the principles that governed the physical world. At age 14, Leonardo left the countryside of his birth to begin his apprenticeship in Florence. This transition marked his entry into the broader world of Renaissance culture and his emergence as an independent artistic personality. Under Verrocchio's guidance, he mastered the technical skills of painting, sculpture, and engineering, while developing the interdisciplinary approach that would make him unique among his contemporaries. Yet even as he achieved recognition as an artist and attracted the patronage of the most powerful figures in Italy, Leonardo remained profoundly marked by the circumstances of his birth and the complex family dynamics that had shaped his early years. The question of Leonardo's descendants, or rather, his lack thereof, represents one of the most poignant aspects of his personal legacy. Unlike his father, Ser Piero, who produced numerous offspring through multiple marriages, Leonardo never married and never had acknowledged children. This absence of direct heirs has puzzled historians and biographers for centuries, particularly given the importance of family continuation in Renaissance Italian culture. Various explanations have been proposed. Some scholars suggest that Leonardo's sexual orientation made traditional marriage and reproduction unlikely. In contrast, others point to his absorption in his artistic and scientific work as incompatible with family responsibilities. The absence of Leonardo's direct descendant stands in stark contrast to the prolific reproduction of his father's line through Leonardo's half-siblings. Ser Piero's legitimate children, Leonardo's half-brothers and half-sisters, established families of their own, continuing the Da Vinci lineage through the subsequent centuries. This biological continuity has enabled modern researchers to trace the family's genetic heritage from Leonardo's generation to the present day, using the Y chromosome inherited through the paternal line to establish definitive genealogical connections. The most remarkable chapter in the Da Vinci family story began in the 21st century, when genealogists Alessandro Vezzosi and Agnese Sabato undertook an ambitious project to document the complete family tree of Leonardo's lineage. Working with the support of the municipality of Vinci and access to centuries of archival records, these researchers compiled a comprehensive genealogy spanning 21 generations from Michel da Vinci in 1331 to the present day. Their work, published in 2021, represents one of the most thorough family histories ever, assembled for a historical figure. The breakthrough discovery came when the researchers identified 5 distinct branches of the Da Vinci family tree that had survived to the present day. These branches, traced from Leonardo's father Ser Piero and his half-brother Domenico, revealed an unbroken chain of male-line descendants carrying the same Y chromosome that Leonardo himself possessed. Using advanced genealogical techniques and DNA analysis, the researchers confirmed the identity of 14 living men who can claim direct biological descent from the Da Vinci family of Renaissance Tuscany. The living descendants identified by this research represent a fascinating cross-section of contemporary Italian society. Among them are farmers who still work the Tuscan countryside where their ancestors lived for centuries, office workers employed in modern businesses, artisans continuing traditional crafts, and at least one artist, 62-year-old Giovanni Vinci, whose very name echoes that of his famous ancestor. The youngest descendant identified in the study was only 1 year old at the time of publication, representing the latest link in a chain that stretches back nearly 7 centuries. Perhaps most remarkably, these modern descendants live ordinary lives, largely unaware of their extraordinary genealogical heritage until contacted by the researchers. They work in fields and offices, raise families, and participate in the everyday rhythms of contemporary Italian life. Yet each carries within his genetic code a direct biological connection to one of history's most extraordinary minds. Their existence provides a tangible link between our modern world and the Renaissance genius, whose innovations continue to inspire scientists, artists, and inventors 5 centuries after his death. The scientific implications of this genealogical research extend far beyond mere historical curiosity. By identifying Leonardo's modern descendants, researchers have opened new possibilities for understanding the genetic basis of exceptional abilities. Future DNA analysis of these living relatives could potentially reveal genetic markers associated with the cognitive skills, artistic talents, or physical characteristics that made Leonardo so remarkable. While genetics alone cannot account for the complex interplay of factors that produce genius, the opportunity to study the genetic heritage of such an extraordinary individual represents an unprecedented window into the biological foundations of human achievement. The Da Vinci family tree also serves as a powerful reminder of the continuity that links past and present across the centuries. The same genetic material that contributed to Leonardo's extraordinary brain circulates today in the bodies of Italian farmers and workers who may never have imagined their connection to history's most famous polymath. Their existence demonstrates that greatness, once introduced into a family line, leaves permanent traces that survive long after the individual achievements have passed into legend. The story of Leonardo's lineage ultimately transcends simple genealogy to become a meditation on different forms of inheritance and legacy. While Leonardo left no biological descendants to carry forward his genetic heritage, he bequeathed to humanity an intellectual and artistic legacy of unparalleled richness. His paintings continue to inspire wonder and analysis. His scientific observations anticipate discoveries made centuries later, and his approach to learning, characterized by insatiable curiosity and interdisciplinary thinking, remains a model for anyone seeking to understand the complexity of the natural world. Yet the recent discovery of his living relatives adds a new dimension to our understanding of Leonardo's legacy. These descendants, carrying forward the genetic heritage of the Da Vinci family while living ordinary contemporary lives, embody a different kind of continuity, one measured not in artistic masterpieces or scientific breakthroughs, but in the simple persistence of biological inheritance across the centuries. In their DNA lies the echo of Leonardo's physical existence, a molecular memory of the Renaissance genius preserved through generations of anonymous lives. The contrast between Leonardo's extraordinary individual achievements and the ordinary lives of his descendants reflects the fundamental unpredictability of human greatness. Genius, it seems, is not simply inherited but emerges from the complex interaction of genetic potential, environmental circumstances, cultural context, and individual choice. The Da Vinci family has produced only one Leonardo in 7 centuries of documented history, a reminder that exceptional abilities, even when they have a genetic component, require extraordinary circumstances to manifest fully. As we stand today in 2025, more than 5 centuries after Leonardo's death, the story of his lineage continues to unfold. The 14 identified descendants represent only those individuals whose genealogical connections have been definitively established through rigorous historical research. Additional relatives may exist, their family histories lost to the accidents of documentation and record-keeping that obscure so many genealogical trails. Future research may expand our understanding of the Da Vinci family tree, revealing new branches and connections that extend the story in unexpected directions. The broader implications of the Da Vinci genealogy project extend beyond the specific case of one Renaissance family. The techniques used to trace Leonardo's lineage, combining traditional archival research with modern DNA analysis, represent a new approach to historical investigation that could revolutionize our understanding of other important figures from the past. By demonstrating that even the most detailed genealogical connections can be scientifically verified, this research opens new possibilities for studying the family histories of historical figures whose personal lives have been obscured by time and limited documentation. Moreover, the story of Leonardo's descendants speaks to fundamental questions about the relationship between individual achievement and collective inheritance. In a world increasingly concerned with genetic influences on human behavior and abilities, the Da Vinci lineage provides a unique case study in the long-term consequences of exceptional genetic heritage. The fact that Leonardo's extraordinary skills have not been replicated in his descendants suggests that genius depends on more than genetic inheritance alone. It requires the alignment of numerous factors that occur rarely and unpredictably. The emotional resonance of discovering Leonardo's living descendants also reflects our deep human need to connect with the past through personal relationships and family bonds. In an age when historical figures often seem remote and almost mythological, the existence of people who share Leonardo's genetic heritage makes him more tangible and human. These descendants serve as living bridges between our contemporary world and the Renaissance, embodying a form of historical continuity that transcends the usual boundaries between past and present. As the story of the Da Vinci family demonstrates, lineage is ultimately about more than genetics. It encompasses the transmission of values, traditions, social positions, and opportunities across generations. Leonardo's family rose from medieval farmers to Renaissance professionals through the accumulated efforts of multiple generations, each building upon the achievements of their predecessors. While Leonardo's own genius transcended the social limitations of his illegitimate birth, his extraordinary achievements were made possible by the foundation of education, social connections, and cultural exposure provided by his family's gradual social ascent had provided. The town of Vinci, where this remarkable family story began, continues to honor its most famous son through museums, cultural events, and educational programs that celebrate Leonardo's legacy. Yet the recent discovery of his living descendants adds a new chapter to this ongoing celebration, providing a human face for the genetic heritage that connects the Renaissance master to the contemporary world. In recognizing these modern relatives, we acknowledge not only Leonardo's extraordinary individual achievements but also the ordinary family life that shaped his early years and continues to perpetuate his genetic legacy centuries after his death. Today, as we contemplate the complete lineage of Leonardo da Vinci, from Michel's first appearance in the records of 1331 to the living descendants identified in 2021, we encounter one of history's most complete examples of how individual genius emerges from the intersection of family heritage, social circumstances, and personal choice. The Da Vinci family tree reveals the gradual accumulation of advantages that enabled Leonardo's achievements, while also demonstrating the unpredictability of exceptional talent. In the end, the bloodline of Leonardo da Vinci tells two interconnected stories: the rise of a medieval family through the social hierarchies of Renaissance Italy, and the emergence of a singular genius from the complex interplay of heredity and environment. The 14 men alive today who carry Leonardo's Y chromosome represent the ongoing biological legacy of this remarkable lineage. At the same time, Leonardo's artistic and scientific achievements constitute his enduring intellectual inheritance to humanity. Together, these two forms of legacy, genetic and cultural, provide a complete picture of how greatness originates, develops, and persists across the centuries. The story continues to unfold in the quiet lives of farmers and workers in contemporary Italy, where the genetic heritage of history's most extraordinary polymath circulates anonymously through the bloodstreams of people who may never fully comprehend their extraordinary genealogical inheritance. In their ordinary lives and everyday accomplishments, the living descendants of Leonardo da Vinci embody the ultimate democratic reality of human genetics. That greatness, once introduced into the human gene pool, becomes part of our collective inheritance, preserved not in monuments or museums, but in the DNA of people whose lives demonstrate the essential continuity between the extraordinary achievements of the past and the ongoing potential of the human future.